Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, precisionhydration.com.
Precision Hydration offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalise your hydration strategy today at precisionhydration.com and get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code OxygenAddict.
And also there's some advance notice here that the code Oxygen Friday will be good for 20% off everything on precisionhydration.com from Black Friday, that's the 23rd of November 2018, until midnight on Cyber Monday, the 26th of November. We're also brought to you by teamoxygenaddict.com triathlon coaching.
Official coaching partner to the Outlaw series, training plans, coaching support from your host Rob Wilby, monthly video coaching calls, and a private Facebook group for you and your teammates.
And also a shout-out reminder for you to join our Oxygen Addict Triathlon Community Facebook page if you haven't done already. We have just passed the 1,000 member mark, which is pretty unbelievable in the 6 or 7 weeks we've had it going. So get yourself on there and jump in the triathlon chat. All right, and welcome to the show. Hells, how are you today?
I'm very good, thanks, Rob. How are you, and have you done your epic mountain bike?
I've got a sore bum, Helen. That's how I am. My sit bones are a little bit sore.
Oh, no. Did you do it?
We did it. We went and rode. So we were talking about riding this thing called the Mary Townley Loop, which I encourage you to look up on a picture on a map, because it goes from sort of like North Manchester area, Ramsbottom type area it starts, and it goes in a huge loop out around the moors, pretty much all the way over, back through Hebden Bridge and around that way. So when you look at it on the map, you're like, wow, that's a lot of area. And it's something I've wanted to ride for over a decade. So when Andy said, come on, let's go and do it, we jumped to the chance. And yeah, it was a long day out. We were budgeting sort of 6 or 7 hours, and we had lights with us in case we were out a bit longer than that. We rolled back into Andy's house a minute before 11 hours. We're up on the clock.
11
hours, yeah. So with a backside that felt as though it'd been beaten by a demon headmaster with a table tennis bat for the last 3.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine hammering down? A lot of the descents are on, I don't know how to describe it. It's like slabbed rock that they've not almost paved the ground with, you know what I mean? Where they put chunks of rock down for walkers to walk on. So you're just repeatedly getting absolutely battered. Andy got cramp in his forearms despite having drunk about 16 litres of precision hydration. My right hand completely seized up and I couldn't use the brake anymore. It was just, you know how when you transition to riding your TT bike outdoors and everything hurts, your neck hurts, your shoulder hurts, it's not your bum and legs that are the problem. It was just like that. It was your biceps and your neck and shoulders that were just, I remember hurling down this hill thinking, I just can't hang on. I can't use the brake. I'm just going to let myself run into that tree just so I'll stop.
Oh my God. So it's 47 miles.
The loop's 47 miles, but we rode to the loop and back from Andy's, and it took us the best part of 45 minutes to actually get to the loop. So we hadn't really factored that part of it in. Our ride was going to be closer to sort of 57, I think, when we looked at it all. So
that's quite a way on a mountain bike.
Yeah, we'd bitten off more than we could chew. I think if we'd just done the loop, if we'd started on the loop, we'd have just got in and completed the whole thing. As it was, we did it clockwise, and we ended up coming off the loop and missing out the last section across the moors and actually having to ride back up a main road, just because our lights were giving out, and we were like, do you know what? If the lights actually give out in the middle of the moors, you know, when you've got one of those nights when there's no starlight and no moon and it's just pitch black, we'd never have found our way home again.
Oh my God.
The Garmins had run out of battery. Yeah, it was ugly.
Sounds great planning, Rob.
Well, yeah, what can I say? We'd budgeted a couple of extra hours of daylight to what we thought we'd need, and we had lights that had an hour and a half's worth of light in them just in case. But when you're out there for an extra sort of 4 hours than you expect, it's a tough one, isn't it?
My God. Had you put in much time on the mountain bike?
No.
There we go.
No.
It's all coming out now, isn't it?
Hadn't put as much time. You know what? It's one of those things where you go, could I have been better prepared for it? Absolutely. I don't think it was fitness that was the issue. We got lost a lot. You know, when you're trying to find your way and navigate stuff, and you kind of have to stop and go, is it that bit or that bit? Or
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
so it was.
Then you doubt yourself more and more and more
Yeah.
at every possible turn.
Yeah, exactly. There's loads of gates as well on this path, so there's over 100 gates. So even if one of those is a minute each, it just, yeah, it takes all your time up. They do it as an organised ride apparently at the end of September. I think the local mountain rescue organise it, and they have marshals holding the gates open for you. So if anyone's listening and it sounds like a fun event in inverted commas, I think that's the way to go. Go and do it on a day when it's organised and there's somewhere to get water from. And, you know, we were stopping at a pub to ask if we could get water from them, and please sell us a Mars bar.
Oh my God.
Good though, Hells. You got to have one epic day out a year, as old Moose said. Do something every year that scares you.
Yeah, very, very true. Well,
Yeah.
I wasn't scared at the weekend, but I was a bit scared actually on Saturday.
Yeah?
Morning.
What were you doing?
We did a Fueled by Cake fundraiser, and I was convinced that no one would turn up.
Oh,
so,
bless you. How did it go?
So raised about £270 thanks to the legend that is Paul Bonnet at our bike shop in Knutsford, Bikes and Gear, who was really, really helpful and was very happy, and my amazing husband Rich as well.
They are both good guys.
Yeah, both very good guys. And they sold one to Mark Radcliffe.
Really?
Him off the radio.
Legend of the radio and drummer from local band Fine Lines as well. Very good drummer. Not many people know, yeah.
So honestly, lovely, lovely guy. And then on Sunday, we went for a run around Derwent Reservoir.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful day for it too.
It was an amazing day, a really, really amazing day. And at the moment, we went up there because you can actually see Derwent, like the village that was...
Oh, can you?
Yes, there's been that little rain.
Yeah, the reservoirs are super low, aren't they?
Yeah. It's amazing. So all these people just sort of walking around what would usually be covered in water, and you could see like bits of the old bridge, and, you know, imagine where the church would have been and the post office would have been in, I don't know, like what, 19 something?
Yeah. Was it the 40s that they flooded it?
A good question.
Well, we're lacking on GCSE geography on here, aren't we? But how much of it could you see?
It wasn't in my case studies, Rob. Derwent Reservoir. It wasn't in my case studies. I could tell you a little bit about the Canadian prairies and harvesting up there, but
there you go.
Yeah.
How much of the village could you see at Derwent Water?
Well, you could see bits of like Derwent Hall. It was the 1940s.
Bits of roof poking out, is it, or is it even lower than that?
Yeah, you could see. Yeah, pump house, bits of roof, bits of bridge. Amazing.
I might go up there. It sounds really cool.
It was very, very cool, and obviously something that you're probably not going to see. See a whole load. There is like loads and loads of mud though, and we didn't go in that. We were just running around, but could see it from afar. But I wouldn't recommend going in the thick mud.
Got you. Cool. Right then, shall we talk a little bit of triathlon news? A bit of racing this weekend, wasn't there?
There was bits of racing, Rob.
So shall we give a shout out first to precisionhydration.com and remind you guys that it's Black Friday coming up this Friday as we record. So they're using the code Oxygen Friday will be good for 20% off everything on precisionhydration.com from Black Friday the 23rd of November through until midnight on Cyber Monday the 26th of November. So it's the right time to stock yourself up on a whole bunch of electrolytes to get you through the winter turbo training or the treadmill training or the indoor swim training that will all be going on through the winter time. I've got to give them a personal shout out, Hells, because I literally could not use my right hand coming to the bottom of one of those descents. I had to stop and have a drink of water and bang 4 of those salt tabs down just to try and unlock the cramp that was going on in my right forearm. Cool. So, thanks guys, you got me through. So get over and check out precisionhydration.com. You can take their online sweat test. That'll give you a guide as to whether you're a particularly salty or sweaty heavy sweater, not a sweaty sweater.
You're going to say a sweaty heavier or something.
A sweaty heavier. Yeah, that'll give you a good guide to that. And if you are, you can get an in-person sweat test done. So particularly if you're racing long distance and or in the heat, it's a really good piece of the puzzle to have figured out. So get over there, check them out at precisionhydration.com. All right, so somewhere it's usually pretty warm is Ironman Arizona, and we had that going on this weekend. And it looks like there was a bit of news for the older athlete, wasn't there?
There was a bit of news for the older athlete. Yes, Rob, correct. So Eneko Llanos was the winner of the men's race at the wonderful age of 41.
Good lad. Doing it for the older men.
Wow, yeah. I mean, he's sort of, he'll be there or thereabouts, won't he, in results, but I don't recall sort of calling his name out for the win for quite a while, to be honest.
He did super well at Kona, didn't he, one year? He was on the podium, if I remember rightly. Back in... Oh, I'm on the spot now, I can't remember. But yeah, he's had some occasional really good results, but he's very consistent wherever he goes, isn't he?
Yeah. He is consistent. But I think it was more like, I haven't mentioned his name for a while. Like Lanzarote 2007, I think he won, and then like Frankfurt 2008. He was second at Kona in 2008.
There we go, 2008, yeah. And was that the year we had him and somebody else had a real ding-dong battle at Frankfurt, didn't they?
Oh, could have been, yeah, because Frankfurt was the one that he won.
It was about that year, yeah. So it might have been Macca, actually. Would that have been about the right timing, 2008? Might have been, mightn't it?
Could have been, yeah. So, Eneko Llanos took the win in 8:04 ahead of fellow Spaniard Clemente Alonso McKernan. And then TJ Tollockson of the US was third in 8:09. And then in the women's race, Rob, Heather Jackson, she put out a stonking performance, 8:39. So I think it's like the 10th fastest iron distance sort of time, which is crazy, isn't it?
Pretty outstanding to go under 8:40, isn't it?
Yeah. So, she did a solid 3-hour marathon after a 4:35 bike and a 57-minute swim. And then Carrie Lester was second in 8:44, and then Jen Annett of Canada third in 8:51.
Do you know Heather Jackson's only just over half an hour behind the men's winner?
Yeah.
So, like, men's times are not that quick, so that's an astonishingly fast performance, isn't it?
Honestly, Heather Jackson, brilliant. Yeah.
4:35 on the bike.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Yeah. Yeah, great performance.
Good stuff. And Graves, he was up there, wasn't he, off the bike? He came in about 5th or 6th, I think, off the bike after a good swim and I think he did 4:14 on the bike, I read.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
He was going super well there, and then looks like tough day at the office on the marathon and brings it in with a 4:08 to finish 22nd. So good for him. I know he loves that race, doesn't he? He was saying he really loves Arizona, loves the homestay and all of that.
That's right. When I spoke to him at the finish line at Ironman Wales, he did say that's probably going to go out there, and because I just love doing it was what he said, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, good for him for sticking it out. I think it shows a lot of guts to bring it in with a 4:08 marathon, because you know it's going to be agony as well for the last hour and a half.
God, yeah, no, that'd be horrible. So good on you, Phil.
Right, down to Ironman Cozumel, where we had wins for Michi Weiss and Svenja Thos. But there's more interesting news further back down the field, wasn't there?
Well, yeah, I noticed at the end of last week that Michelle Vesterby was on Torsten's try rating, and I didn't see anything saying something like, oh no, I'm not going to be racing, because Michelle Vesterby has announced that she is pregnant. So she actually said before the race, you know, basically she's 15 weeks pregnant, and she said, no, I've spoken with doctors, I feel good, and so I am going to race. But actually, Rob, she didn't end up finishing, but then she posted afterwards, she said, you know, I'm okay. The day ended with a puncture that I couldn't fix. She says it was the first time for everything. And she said, that's sport. And as I said in Kona, things happen for a reason. And now it's all about the baby. She had said in an interview that she was hoping to sort of secure her place at Kona for next year at Ironman Cozumel this weekend.
Right, okay.
So it would be a case of race Cozumel, you know, have a baby, and then come back and do Kona in September, which would have been pretty epic. But yes, she didn't obviously manage to secure her place at Kona next year.
Oh, well, all the best to Michelle for the baby then. Good for her.
There we go. Yep.
Good. Right then, and zooming off around the world down to China, it was, how do we pronounce this? Is it Xiamen, 70.3 Xiamen?
Sounds shaman, but yeah, I don't know. I don't speak Chinese.
Neither do I.
Chinese, I'm afraid, so don't know.
But you're my resident go-to for help, Hells, when I can't pronounce things.
Just say it confidently.
There we go. We'll say Xiamen then.
There we go.
70.3 Xiamen. So Imogen Simmons gets her first 70.3 victory, and this year, yeah.
Yep.
Kevin Collington took it on the run.
Yes, he did. He did Kevin Collington did a 1:17 run to take the win by just about a minute over Trevor Wurtele, and Imogen Simmons finished ahead of Heather Wurtele and then Sarah Piampiano in the women's race.
Cool stuff. Right, so this week's interview of the week, Hells, who have you got lined up for us, please?
This week, Rob, we have Linsey Corbin, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, actually, just at the just after Kona, the start of her off season. And she was about to go to Ireland on holiday. And I noticed this morning that she put Training Peaks is suddenly full again. And so she is very much starting to get back on it. But yeah, she's really good fun, actually, Rob, as you will hear in the interview. And really good lessons about coming back from injury, because she was out for most of 2015 with a fractured femur. She was wondering, would she ever get back to the top again? And then she went and posted a sub-9 hour time, 8:58:57, to come 10th at Kona this year. So a really, really impressive performance. And Rob, she's been racing for ages. It was her 12th time in Kona. So there are so many lessons that you can take from this interview with Linsey Corbin. Linsey Corbin, hello, and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. Have you managed to shower yet?
No. Oh, well, not today. But I'm working my way that direction.
I saw that you just had failed to have a shower, really, after Kona. Not necessarily after Kona, but I guess off season, and you're just like, I haven't had a shower today.
Exactly. My coach told me I can't train for the entire week at least. So yeah, you just forget to shower when you don't work out 3 times a day.
Your skin's probably thinking, I'm quite liking this. It's not so dry.
Yes, exactly.
So how are you recovering after Hawaii?
I'm doing pretty good. The first few days were super rough I think it's just the conditions at Hawaii are so hard, so they beat you up more than other races, and then not getting a lot of sleep. And then I definitely enjoyed some post-race beverages and celebrations. And then we took a red-eye flight home. So the first few days were pretty rough. But then right around yesterday, which is Wednesday, Thursday, I kind of started walking normal again, and sleeping 13 hours at night helps. So I'm back in business now.
And you had a great performance this year, finishing in the top 10. It was amazing to follow. What was it like being in that race?
Yeah, this year was a different year for me. I really have worked quite hard on my swim, and the hard work paid off, and I actually came out of the swim, and I was actually part of the race. I was in that big main sort of chase pack that came out of the water, the 57 group. And in years past, I've come out behind that and really been racing behind and kind of racing my own race. And this year I came out with that main pack, and I was actually part of the race. And I came off the bike, I think, in 17th place, which is that, normally I'm even further back than that. And so just being further up in the race was kind of a lot more exciting and motivating. And yeah, just to be like, I'm part of the race versus kind of fighting from behind for the tail end of it.
Would you have had any idea what was going on up the front with, Lucy Charles and Danielle Reef, other than in your mind probably thinking, well, I can imagine what's happening?
Yeah, I've raced in Kona a fair amount, so I kind of knew, and I was there last year, so I had an idea. Everyone knew that Lucy would be up the road. Lucy and I raced in South Africa earlier this year too, so I knew that she would be first out of the water. That was pretty much a guarantee. And yeah, really it's a matter of just waiting out the time till the turn in Hawi. And then in Hawi, it's a real indicator of like what's the dynamics of the race, what's going on up the road. And yeah, so.
And were conditions, I mean, everyone said conditions were a lot faster this year. Had you had conditions like that before? Because I mean, this was like your 12th time racing at Kona, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this was my 12th time racing there, and I've been for a bunch of training camps, and I've lost count how many times I've ridden the bike course, but never once have I seen it like that ever. So yeah, it was definitely crazy fast conditions, and even going out though, with the tailwind, kind of calm wind, you still don't know. Like I found that you can't trust anything in Kona. So it still was in the back of my mind, well, maybe the winds will blow on the way back to town. And yeah, there was nothing. Like we climbed up to Hawi and you could drop a pin. You know, the grass wasn't moving. It was definitely the calmest I've ever seen it. And it was quite cool. We had a bit of cloud cover, so I knew it was going to be a fast day.
And do you think those conditions helped you, or, you know, they obviously helped everyone go faster, but were they more sort of, comfortable is not necessarily the right word for an Ironman, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think the conditions suited my strengths at all. I mean, I definitely consider myself a strong biker runner, and then also being a veteran to racing in Kona and kind of knowing what the hard conditions do. I think that, yeah, the conditions didn't necessarily suit me. I would have liked to see it a little bit warmer and a little bit windier, but regardless, it's still a very, very hard race. I mean, I think because the conditions were so ideal on the bike, perhaps a lot of people rode harder than we would have normally, because I thought I was pretty beat up for the run. I can't say any part of the run felt good for me this year. So, I mean, yeah, it's a hard race regardless, but I definitely think the conditions didn't suit myself or anyone that's a strong cyclist, as no one could get away on the bike. And I think also we haven't had the pack dynamics in the women's field, maybe ever. I mean, that was a pack of like 12 or 15 women that was riding together. So that was new too.
And what was it like being in that pack? Because you often hear the guys talking about those packs. So if that was a new experience, did you enjoy being in that?
No, I mean, like I enjoyed being in it because in my head it was like, okay, I'm part of the race and this is the race right here. So there's comfort in numbers in that, but I didn't enjoy it necessarily at all. A few years ago, I suffered a couple penalties that year racing, and I made a vow to never get a penalty ever again. And I also know that at a world championship event, 5 minutes because of a penalty is going to cost you the top 10. So I was riding pretty conservative and compared to the women in front of me, and leaving that draft zone quite a bit open. And with that, women would then slip in front of me. And so it was definitely a lot of that yo-yo effect that you kind of hear with the men, where you'll be riding at like 140 or 150 watts, which is not that much for us. And then all of a sudden you have to surge up to 230 or 240 watts to kind of hold your space. So we had a moto with us the whole time. And I definitely think there were some calls that probably should have been made, but yeah, you just kind of have to play the game how it is. And really one of my goals for the race was to race my own race and not have it be affected by the people around me. And so when we got to the climb at Hawi, I took a turn at the front. And then by the time we got back down from Hawi and made the turn out of Kauai High, I was riding by myself, which I would rather ride by myself and sort of have a clean power profile without the surginess than be in a group and have a lot of surges.
And had you done much training for those surges? Because obviously the guys, they're used to it. But if those dynamics have never really appeared at the World Championships before, do you think everyone was ready for it?
Yeah, it's hard to tell if you're ready or not. I mean, I try to train, high intensity a couple times a week. And depending on the time of year, sometimes more of that. We do the super, 1 minuters, 30-seconders, 2 minuters. But coming into the race, I hadn't done a lot of it because I'd done an Ironman 5 weeks before. So, that I didn't necessarily have the ability to do the super high-end stuff for the 5 weeks leading into the race. But I just tried to keep my power file, as smooth as possible. And I know that every time you do a surge like that, you're burning a match in your book. So for me, I want to set myself up for the best run possible. So I just tried to keep it smooth. And then I kind of got sick of it, like I said, about halfway through the race, and just went to the front and took off.
And you said that your legs felt, that the marathon was pretty battered. Their legs were pretty battered from the beginning. Was that as soon as you dismounted your bike, you're thinking, oh no?
Yeah, I don't know why. I've never really felt that great at the marathon in Kona. And I got off the bike on the pier, and Matt Lieta was there, who was commentating, and said, "You look a lot better than the other women." So that's kind of encouraging. And I think the lesson there is that you don't have to feel good to go good. And so for me, it's just a matter of like turning off your brain and doing the best you can. And so it's like, even though I didn't feel good, I think it would be easy to mentally give in and walk, or, give up because it's not feeling like it should feel. But I know in Kona that perseverance and just putting one foot in front of the other often pays off. So it was, definitely one of the longer marathons I've run mentally. It just, you don't feel good for 3 hours and 10 minutes or whatever it was for me, but you do the best you can. And in the end, it worked out all right for me.
And when you do get off the bike and you're not feeling great, and you're saying you sort of switch your brain off, what sort of mental tactics do you use to get through that? Because that is a hell of a long time to think, I really do feel a bit shit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm kind of weird in that I'm a counter. So I like to count when I'm running. And so for me, I take the marathon as 10-minute segments. And so for me, it's really 18 10-minute races, which adds up to 3 hours. So I really just take it 10 minutes at a time. And the first 10 minutes, I'm counting to 1.
Really?
But I know it's really crazy, but it helps you find a rhythm, and it helps you kind of take your mind off of what you're doing. And I'm not counting the entire 10 minutes, but if my mind starts to wander, or if I'm thinking the 10 minutes is going on, then I count, 1, 1, 1. And it's kind of with every foot strike for rhythm. And then for the next 10 minutes, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And so, yeah, I'm a counter, and I know it sounds crazy, and I've only actually just started it in the last couple of years, but it works for me, and it makes it go by kind of fast. So if you see me out there, you can know she's counting.
So by the time you're, 16, are you literally going 1:16, 1:16?
No, so it gets even more weird is that I count up. I know, and I'm not a mathy person at all. But so I take it, it's 3 rounds of 6. So the highest I'll count ever is up to 6. So it's 1, 2, 3,
after
4,
that,
5, 6.
You might get a bit confused.
Yes, and then at 6, you start back over at 1. And then actually the whole reason it kind of started is that I fuel my marathon off of the Cliff shot blocks, and I eat a shot block every 10 minutes. So that's what kind of started it, was that every 10 minutes I'd have a block, and there's 6 blocks in a sleeve. And so you go through 1 sleeve in an hour. So I don't know if I've lost you, if you're still following this. People are like, I can't even wrap my head around this, but well, it works for me.
It's a good way to distract yourself.
Yes, exactly. And then it's like every time you get a snack, you get a little reward, and it's like the rat in the cage of like, all right, here's your treat. You've done a good job. And then we move on to the next one, and it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then you move on to the next one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's pretty much how my distraction tactics for not thinking about how good I feel out there.
So previously, before you had the Cliff Bar counting tactics, which I think is genius, did you sometimes used to struggle mentally on the run, and did you let your mind run away a little bit?
Yeah, not really. I kind of think one of my strengths as an athlete is just being focused on the moment and thinking pretty positive and using mantras. And so I actually consider myself a pretty strong-willed, tough athlete, especially when things are going all right. It's easy to kind of keep pushing through, but I come from a running background, and my run's kind of always been my strength, and I'm coming from behind, especially later in the race, pretty much no matter what. So, the counting is just kind of a newer thing, but, I don't know. I kind of enjoy that last 2 hours of the race where I think to me that really is the race, is in that last 90 minutes. And that kind of makes or breaks. So for me, my goal is always to just be running as well as I can or better than the rest of the field in that last 90 minutes. And usually if you're doing that, you can end up going pretty well.
I love this. This is brilliant. And how would you say have the World Championships changed since you did your first one there?
I mean, when I first started racing, first of all, we started almost with the age group athletes. They were only 5 minutes back. And so my first time racing in Kona was a complete cluster because I was not a great swimmer at all. And then all the age group men caught me and I didn't know what to do. And I'd never been in that situation before. So that's one thing that's changed, is that we definitely have, I think, a more fair race than we have, early on when I started racing. And then the other thing, just the depth of the field is huge and how fast we're going. I mean, I went under 9 hours, and granted we had crazy fast conditions at the race, but I think that time would have won the race for 30 something years, and the race has only been around for 40 years. So the depth of the field, and now only minutes separate, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th through 10th through 15th, it's a very close race. Whereas, maybe a couple years ago, you would see 10 minutes between each finisher. So the women are going faster. There's more of us. And it's an exciting time to be a part of the sport. And
you've obviously seen Chrissy come and race and then retire. And then, the likes of Rinny and Daniela and now Lucy Charles as well. Yeah. Does that keep you on your toes, and does that keep you motivated, because it is still exciting to be a part of?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think the faster the other women go, the more motivating it is, or it just sets the bar higher. I mean, I think now if you're not running a low 3-hour marathon, you don't stand a chance at, winning races or doing well. And so, and same with on the bike, if you're not, riding 5 hours or riding at, 210 watts, for me personally on the bike, you're not going to do, have the success that you want. But I think definitely what keeps me going more than my competitors is just this challenge to keep improving. And I mean, really, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I think I enjoy this challenge of can you improve? And yes, actually, I can improve. And so you're seeing improvements. And I think that's, that you can be a better version of yourself next year. And so for me, that's going to be, what motivates me this off season and looking ahead towards next year is, how much better can I get? I know I need to keep improving on my swim, which I did this year. And so now I'm super motivated to swim because it's okay, I saw these improvements. So yeah, I think this idea of continually improving and trying to be the best version of yourself is what excites me, and probably what helps drive that or motivate that is you see what the other women are doing. And it's well, if they can do it, I can do it too, or I want to see if I can do it at least.
After your injury in 2015, at that point, did you consider calling it a day ever?
During the injury, for sure I did. Actually, I remember I went out to Kona that year and watched the race and volunteered. And I remember sitting on the beach with my husband and I was crying and just emotional. And I'm I may never run again, and so there definitely was a part of me that thought I couldn't return to the athlete that I was prior to being injured. But after I was healthy, I definitely was motivated and felt like I had unsettled business that I wanted to take care of. And I feel stronger now as an athlete, even though I'm older, than I was prior to that injury. So if you're having an injury and it feels like the end of the world, my advice is that I hear you and I feel you, and it probably does seem like the end of the world, but it's not. I mean, everyone always says when you have adversity like that things happen for a reason and you'll come back stronger from it. And I genuinely, truly believe that just because I've experienced it. So definitely you'll come back stronger mentally and physically, I think.
And in what way would you say that you are stronger?
I mean, definitely mentally, I think I'm probably a bit more mature of an athlete now. And I also have such appreciation for being healthy and being able to train. After having a year of not being able to train properly and hiccups and being in pain, I promised myself that like if I could get healthy again, that I would never take a day for granted. So mentally, yeah, I just am excited when I'm healthy and I'm motivated and super grateful. And then strong physically, I definitely think, I incorporated a lot of gym work coming back from that injury and just lifting weights. And we've changed a little bit of the style of how I've trained, doing more strength work actually in the pool and on the bike. And then as well as running, I've increased my run mileage. I'm probably running more now than I ever did in my career. And that's because we kind of built the chassis up to be able to handle the more mileage. And so, yeah, I just feel probably the most durable, and hopefully I'm not going to wake up injured tomorrow. But I definitely just feel stronger in general and able to handle more miles.
And I think I've mentioned you, I've mentioned you? No, I've heard you mention about birth control as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry that it's like a personal subject, but we've talked lots about periods on this podcast. And are you now sort of healthy in that sense as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was kind of one of the big factors as to why I had a stress fracture in my femur. And I hadn't done a lot of overtraining or over mileage, and I was eating healthy. And so for me, it didn't really make sense as to why I got the stress fracture. And I mean, I think the word stress is just that. It's stress in the body, and it doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of, pounding pavement or being malnourished. And so because of that, when I was trying to heal the bone, we ended up going off of birth control. And I basically had been on birth control to get my period when I was 18 because I'd never gotten it. And then I was on birth control all the way up to 34 or however old I was that year. And so I'd never gotten like my own natural period. And I went through a bunch of blood work and saw a bunch of specialists, and they recommended, you should get off birth control and see what happens. And I guess I was kind of curious. And so I got off birth control that summer of 2015, maybe late in the summer. And it took me a couple months to get a cycle. But yeah, I haven't gone back on it. And I've seen huge changes since going off of it. So I mean, everyone's different about what they want to use and what their choices are. But for me, I don't think I'll ever go on a hormone type substance like that, because the difference, I didn't know that there was anything impacting me until I went off of it. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, I don't have these crazy mood swings and I just am healthy. And more than anything, I think getting your period is a great indicator of like, are you healthy or are you not? And I mean, I've skipped a few periods. Usually around an Ironman, I'll skip one period. So that's a couple a year that you're skipping. But I think it's a great indicator of if you're healthy or not. And I actually got my period like 2 weeks before Kona. And my husband was super stoked on it. He's like, yep, like you're the healthiest you've ever been. So it's, if anything, I get confidence from that of like, okay, like I am healthy. I don't have to worry about ailments. So I think, I could go on and on about it, but
no, honestly, it is such a fascinating subject, and a really important subject, because I think a lot of people just don't understand just don't understand enough about it. And then
yeah, my only thing that I don't like about it is when I get my period, it's a horrible 24 hours for me. And I used to not be able to relate. Like women would say that they got their period in a race and had a poor performance. And I was kind of like, oh, come on. Like, I don't understand, but I know now when I get my period for like 24 to 36 hours, I'm out of commission. Like I have to lay in a dark room. I can't move. It's just so painful. And so that's what I would say I don't like about it. But, and I pretty much can't train that day. And usually half the next day too. But if that's an indicator of being healthy, then one day off a month for me is worth it. So I would say that's the thing I don't like about it. But, I don't know. Yeah.
It's really, really, really encouraging to hear. Tell me about Bend, because I spoke to Heather Jackson probably around about this time last year, and I was like, I want to go to Bend.
Yes.
It sounds like sounds the best place ever.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a smallish town in the mountains. But it's we get a ton of sunshine here, like 330 days of sunshine a year. So we're just on the other side of the mountain range, and just great weather. It definitely snows here, and you get winter weather for sure, but it's not, I lived in Montana for years, and it's not nearly as brutal of winters as Montana. So we get snow here, but it's, I would guess, maybe similar to Boulder in that we get snow and then it melts and kind of goes away a couple days later. But if you want to go up into the mountains, there's definitely snow in the winter. But in the summer, it's just incredible. I think that that's why everyone lives here in the summer, and you can just ride up into the mountains, and there's lakes. We have a river that flows through town. It's kind of a bit of a tourist town. Like, people definitely come here to visit because we have lots of breweries and good restaurants and pubs and lots of parks and open space. It's a very dog-friendly town. We have a dog, so dogs are kind of welcome everywhere. It's most people have a dog, and the other thing I like about it too is it's a super active community. So everyone here is healthy and fit, and whether they're triathletes, there's paddle boarders, mountain bikers, kayakers, skiers. And a lot of people here don't work traditional jobs. So like, you'll go to the coffee shop at 10 a.m. and it's packed, and you're like, why are these people not at work? But so it's a beautiful place to live. And I grew up here actually, and then left for 15 years. And then my husband and I moved back a couple years ago. So it's been interesting to see how it's changed and come back. And I feel like it's a different town now than it was when I grew up. But just the accessibility, I think, to the outdoors and the active community, and lots of healthy food options and restaurants and cafes, it just makes it a great place.
It sounds awesome. And do you train a lot with Heather, or do you keep to your own sort of training programs? Yeah,
we train a fair amount. We actually live in the same neighborhood, so we only live a few blocks from each other. But if anything, we socialize together more than train together. We swim together a bunch, like pretty much, 4 days a week. And then riding, if it matches up, we go on rides together, and same with our runs. Like, we do a lot of our easier runs, or head out on a run together, and she'll go do her thing and I'll do mine. But I think I like Bend in that it's a diverse community. You have triathletes, but then you also have a group of runners. So if you want to go hang out with your running friends that don't know anything about triathlon, you can. And there's a group of bike racers. So if you want to hang out with your bike racing friends, and they can make fun of triathletes all they want, there's that group. And then there's a group of swimmers and people that, swam in college and they're still swimming for fitness or fun now. And so you can go hang out with your swimming friends. And for me, it's like try to keep up with them and swim faster. And and I think I haven't spent much time in Boulder, but I feel like Bend is maybe a little bit more low key. Like, people can do their own thing, and it's easy to train with people if you want, but you can also totally do your own thing and not see anyone, or hang out with people that aren't triathlon and, asking you about training, 24/7. So I would say I do a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely stick closely to the plan my coach lays out for me. And so it's, I train with people where it sees fit and if I need motivation. And I'm also perfectly fine being a lone wolf. And, I think Ironman racing is a bit of a lonely sport. And at the end of the day, you have to race alone for 9 hours and count in your head. So maybe that's where the counting came from, is I'm training alone too much. But anyways, so yeah.
No, it's honestly, it does sound like such a wicked place. Linsey, on your website, you list your favourite things. So we're going to have a little quiz now, right? How often do you jump into a pile of hot laundry?
Oh, it's like my favorite thing ever. I don't know why, but my favorite thing is my husband will get the laundry out of the dryer and bring it downstairs, and then I'll lay on the bed and have him cover me in it. Ever since, we've been together 17 years, and ever since college days. Anyways, I think it's because I like heat. I'm not a cold person. I know I live in the mountains, but I like warm. So maybe that's where it came from.
So how often do you bake a pie?
Oh, not very often during the season, but during off season, yeah, I love baking and all sorts of things, from breads to cookies to pies to not healthy treats.
What would be your favorite pie filling?
It depends on the time of year. If it's summer, it's peach, and in the fall, it's apple. But I don't like to make it that much because I think it's kind of boring, but I love pumpkin pie. I've already had it. I had it, I think the day we got home. I got it from the cafe down the street. My husband's like, "Is that your first pumpkin pie of the season?"
You also enjoy a craft beer. Is that more off season?
Yes, no, I definitely love beer. I'm even sponsored by a brewery in Montana, Big Sky Brewing. So I think everything in moderation during the season. And I definitely am not afraid to treat myself for a good performance or a good day's training or a good block of training. But off season, definitely I will eat and drink liberally and celebrate. I mean, we work so hard for what we do. So I think you got to celebrate when you can.
You and Heather must absolutely nail the craft beer in off season because her brother is really into craft brewing, or?
Yes, her brother is a brewer at one of our local breweries, 10 Barrel, which is like maybe 2 kilometers from where we live. So,
nice.
Yes.
That's really cool. And final random question. Putting on a new pair of socks, is that a daily thing?
Oh, yes. No, that's definitely, I don't have many race day superstitions, but I love socks. Like, I'm sock obsessed. So I always wear brand new socks for the marathon. So yeah, that's brand new socks for the marathon when I'm racing. That's my go-to.
Love that. And do you think will you be coming back to Europe to race next year? Or have you not really thought yet at all about 2019?
Yeah, I haven't thought a ton about it. I mean, I would love to. I raced there a couple times at Ironman Austria and absolutely loved it. I love the culture. I love the fans. I love the food. I love the gelato, the coffee, the mountains. So I would love to get back. I just haven't thought much about next year. Fortunately for me, I've already qualified for Kona 2019, so I have no pressure. I can pretty much do what I'd like. So I know Challenge Roth is definitely on my bucket list. I'm like, maybe I need to do it next year, but we'll see. So hopefully, but right now I just want to enjoy the break, and I'll think about it probably in a couple of weeks when I get antsy again.
Yeah, when you're really getting itchy to go, I need to get back into it.
Yes, exactly.
Linsey, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your off season and happy holidays as well. And
yes.
Enjoy those pumpkin pies.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I love the attitude of you will come back stronger from an injury. That's a great attitude to have.
Oh yeah, it was. I just think that whole bit about the injuries really, really, really interesting because obviously there are days when you just feel so down and you kind of think I'm never going to get back to where I was or whatever, but actually she is absolute proof that with hard work and dedication and you can, and I remember seeing that she actually volunteered at Kona when she couldn't race it, and it's things like doing that, isn't it, just giving something back and staying focused on what you can do.
Yeah, I remember years ago, Peter Reid, who won the race 3 times, he volunteered at Kona the year after he retired. He was like, I wanted to be back on the island, so I went back to volunteer on an aid station on the run. And he said, you've never seen a bunch of more focused people than if you give somebody the wrong thing on an aid station. For like the 9:45 to 10 hour guys at Kona, they're just like, I said I wanted Coke! It's a great interview with him.
I think I sort of, is if you start coming to an aid station and you just sort of say, water, 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 or energy, energy. It's when you're in a foreign country and you've just, it's always good to learn the words that they're going to be shouting out, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is.
That's my top tip.
All right, let's jump over into Coach's Couch.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Well, the coach has a little cough.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Was that a cough or was that a sneeze?
No, it was a cough, but I moved the mic out of the way.
Oh, well done. Right. Coach's Couch, Rob. Basically, running, because you've been talking about the time training system for biking and about the intelligent use of intensity on the bike. What about the system when it comes to running for a triathlete?
Yeah, cool. So what we're going to try and do here is calm people's minds a little bit around what you need to be doing on your running in this time of year when we've just told you need to set your time up to concentrate on, your best use of time is improving your bike power and working really hard 2 or maybe 3 times a week on the bike. People's minds tend to then say, well, what about my running? I should be doing some hard running as well. So my focus here is to say we need to think about your overall triathlon training week. And the first focus is how many times a week can you train hard in inverted commas. So if you looked at a pure runner, they might do 2 interval sessions a week, or it might be 1 interval session and 1 tempo run. The thing you've got to tell your mind is your cardiovascular system is already getting those hard workouts on the bike. So your cardiovascular system doesn't need you to do a 3rd one or a 4th one on the run as well. And bearing in mind your legs are also going to be tired from this hard training on the bike. The thing we need to be doing is saying, right, the best way that we can prepare ourselves for running in this phase is to be running either easy or steady all the time. It makes sense in terms of not overloading yourself with lots of hard work. It makes sense in terms of not doing too much hard stuff so you don't get injured. What it doesn't make sense in terms of is your mind saying, but I'm never going to get faster at running if I don't run hard in training. So this is the kind of focus of this little chat here to say, you will get faster at running, even if you're not running fast in training. So here's a couple of benefits of things that will happen. If you do all your running easy or steady for a couple of months, it's going to do a great job of increasing the durability of your legs. And by that, I mean your injury proofness, your ligaments, your tendons, the fact your body's still going to get just as much of a pounding running easy or steady as it does running hard. It's just there's a vastly reduced injury risk. So by doing lots of easy or steady running now and not getting injured, you're actually doing a better job than that other version of yourself who tries to do some hard running sessions and picks up a niggle and ends up missing training because of it. So consistent running is better for your running than the thought of doing some interval training and actually getting niggles or injuries a lot of the time as well. We're also going to make use of the run walk for your long runs. So anything over 45 minutes in this winter phase, I'm going to say go for a minute's walk every 9 minutes. Now, again, people's minds are going to say, well, I'm not a walker, I'm a really fit athlete. But we've seen time and time again that it's going to reduce the amount of soreness that you get in your legs after training. It means you bounce back from that training much, much faster. And you can also do much longer runs by doing a walk-run method than you can, if you like, as your fitness would allow you to at the moment. So you've just got to tell your mind, you'll still get the cardiovascular benefits because of that bike training that you're doing. And we've got loads of examples of athletes who've gone all through the winter without doing any hard or fast running at all. They've done the first 5K or 10K in the spring, and they've actually done a PB despite having done nothing but easy or steady running all winter. And it's all down to the fact that the body's injury proof because of the consistent run training that they've had, and the cardiovascular system's really fit because of all the hard bike intensity that they've done. So that's, to bring it full circle, why we talk about it as the intelligent use of intensity, because you're looking at the bigger picture rather than just saying, I have to do hard work on the run. You're accepting that you're training your whole body as a triathlete, looking at the big picture across a given week or a given month. How does that sound, Hells?
I do remember, Rob, the first time I remember running along the river, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was meant to be doing, I'm sure it was something like 9:40 pace, something like that, I'm sure, so like 9:40-minute miles.
Yeah.
And it felt ridiculous. And there were people around me who would be not running, all that quickly, flying past. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like this is really...
I want to run faster.
This is really frustrating, and I look really rubbish doing this.
It's the big challenge, isn't it, the mind?
Yeah.
It's the big, big challenge.
Yeah. Because you look at and you see people who, you can run faster than,
Yeah.
And you're not. And you're like, okay, I now have to look really unfit because I'm now going to walk for a minute.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to get your head around, but I know that bit by bit, that definitely went down by about a minute.
Yeah, and
as in my easy pace, over is sort of a year or two, I'd say.
It does gradually increase for the same given effort and heart rate, because another big benefit of this running slowly in training is that it gives your aerobic system a chance to actually work when you're running. Because for most people, they go out for a run, they immediately run far too fast for the fitness of their fuel supply system, if you like. They shoot right through the aerobic system, so it never gets a chance to kind of get up and firing and start burning fat, which is why I think, I've only got anecdotal evidence for this, but my dad always used to say, my dad was like a rugby player in his youth, and he used to say, even when he was marathon training, he never found running was very good for weight control, whereas cycling was. And a lot of people have found that anecdotally over the years, that cycling is much, much better for the sort of fat loss thing than running, 20, 30 minutes a day. And I think that's part of the reason, is that when we go out running, we just run too fast for the fat burning system to be needed. So it kind of never even gets fired up. You go right through the area where it's needed. So I think one of the big benefits here is that if you're training for Ironman especially, you need to get your body used to actually running aerobically. And then it becomes efficient doing that. And then when you get to your race day, it's like, oh, look at this. I've spent loads of time in training processing fat as a fuel, and training running processing fat as a fuel. Whereas if you've never done that, if you've always gone out and done like a moderately paced tempo run, you can be out for an hour, you fuel it by carbs without even thinking about it. But I think there's something in that idea that running really slowly helps you become much more efficient, and so you don't have to run as slowly to be purely aerobic.
And Rob, not everyone who listens to this podcast does like Ironman and 70.3. So if, sprint or Olympic are on the horizon for next year,
yeah,
is it the same sort of advice?
Yeah, because I think it comes back to that idea of looking at your week as a whole triathlete, rather than looking at it in terms of, I need to train my swim, I need to train my bike, I need to train my run. Looking at the amount of training and the amount of hard work you can possibly absorb, and thinking, well, if I'm already doing it on the bike during this phase, I'm not going to do any of it on the run. Now, my advice would differ as we get into spring and then the summer race preparation season for those sprint and Olympic athletes, because they are going to, by necessity, have to do hard and fast running in order to prepare them for the demands of their race come race season, but not at this time of year. And again, the advice then is sort of similar for those Ironman athletes, in that when you think about it, nobody's really limited by their run fitness in terms of how fast they can run on race day. You know what I mean? Even the Kona qualifiers are not running fast relative to their ability to run, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's not their run fitness that's ever going to be a limiting factor. It's going to be a combination of their overall endurance, meaning how well they can resist fatigue for 8, 9, 10 hours, and how well they've trained the fuel supply to deliver that fuel when the carb supplies are completely depleted and they can't really take much on in the back end of the race.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, so if you're doing any distance, then good to know.
I think so, yeah. During this winter phase, lots of easy running. Have a chat with your mates. Go out with someone who's slower than you. It's a great time of year to go out with a friend who is just getting into the sport and who's a slower runner than you, and park your ego and think it's okay to be running 2 minutes a mile slower than I can do. We can have a nice chat.
Oh, we were chatting all the way around Derwent Reservoir, and it was just taking in the scenery. It was amazing.
I bet it was lovely, yeah.
It was really good. Yeah, really, really good.
Just before we finish Coach's Couch, I just want to say thank you to everybody who nominated me for the 220 Magazine Awards Coach of the Year Award. I'm really proud to say that I've made the short list of 5 coaches for the Coach of the Year. The voting is now open, so I'll put a link in the show notes over for the actual voting part of it. People have been nominated. Now you get to vote for your Coach of the Year. So if you've been helped out by any of the advice you've had from the podcast over the past few years and you would like to vote, I would really appreciate your vote if you can do that. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm really humbled, and my mum would be super proud if I get to win it. So if you can get over there and make a vote, that would be brilliant. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll jump over into our news section, and you've had a bit of a catch-up with old Laura Siddle, haven't you?
I did, Rob. We mentioned on the podcast
I meant
last
good
week.
old Laura Siddle, and not old Laura Siddle. I'm not saying you're old Laura.
Did you forget the word good?
I forgot the word good. And in fact, I don't even need the word old. Good Laura Siddle. There you go. Sorry, Sid.
So, yeah, mentioned on the podcast last week that Laura Siddle had come to Knutsford Triathlon Club to have she delivered a Pilates for Sport session, which made a few people hurt, I think, in a good way, and
brilliant.
made a few people remember where their core is. And then she did a Q&A as well. I've written a blog up about it, so if you think that you want to read a little bit more about some of the tips and advice that she shared with us, then have a little Google. You might find a blog somewhere, or if you look at helenmurray.net/blog, you'll see it up there. And really, really good blog from Laura. Really good of her to give us her time. And before we went down to Knutsford, we had a little catch up. So here it is.
Laura Siddle, this is exciting. You're actually in my house.
I know.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So you are here for like 2 weeks in the UK, and that's it. It's the one visit.
Like annual visit to the UK. It's my changing hemisphere visit. So I've just finished racing in the Northern Hemisphere and in summer. And I'm now in the process of migrating south to the Southern Hemisphere. But yeah, just kind of back in the UK to catch up with family. Well, that was the plan. I think I'm going to see them for about 3 days in the 2 weeks that I'm back, which is not ideal, but it's all right.
How would you sum up your 2018?
Yeah, good question. Mixed, but that's so the wrong. Like, I can't complain. I mean, you can't complain with 3 full distance wins. Ironman New Zealand was really, really magical, winning that event, and then to defend and win again in Australia, of course, was amazing. And then to win in Madrid and sort of just kind of prove that I can get another. I can win again. So I can't deny those, and they've been at super highs in the year. But there've also been lots of frustrations and races where I feel I've missed opportunities, and races where I feel I should have performed better and secured better results. Now, I came second in a lot of races, so there's not much better you can get with that. But I think from a personal perspective, in terms of the way things panned out, there was a lot of frustration with it as well. So I'm trying to do that whole thing of, and me being the sort of person I am, I tend to focus on the self-critical, the negative aspects, and forget about those amazing highs. So I am trying to, again, sort of this next couple of weeks and months while I'm in a bit of downtime, try and look back and go, no, it was brilliant at times, and those wins were great, and there was lots of good things that happened this year, and yes, there's a lot of frustrations and what I feel were missed opportunities, but don't forget the highs as well. Yeah.
Where did you think in particular was like the biggest missed opportunity for you?
I mean, I think just the challenge series in Europe, racing a lot of the half distance races, I think there was opportunities there that I should have grasped, or I had the opportunity to take wins or perform better. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the people who did win. It was just from my personal. There's also obviously the Kona question, and I get very frustrated around that race, because I don't put it's not a focus for me over the year, and I don't regret putting Challenge Madrid in there 3 weeks before Kona, because I got the win and it secured me in the Challenge Series, which financially is going to be better for me at the end of the year. I don't regret doing Ironman Australia, Ironman New Zealand, but there is that question of what if you go into Kona without it being your 5th full distance race of the year, without racing 11 races before that race, without doing one 3 weeks before, which turned out to be took a lot more out of me because of the course and stuff than I kind of had thought. And we went into Kona with that sort of no expectations, let's just see what happens. But it is so difficult because of the focus that the race does get from everybody. And it is hard with a lot of people, have said they only judge on Kona, which is really hard to then put my year into perspective and be happy about the results I've had when nobody really sees those or cares, because they just judge you on that one day of the year. And also it's sort of, I have to fend off, it's probably a little bit dramatic, but it is, you do get, in the weeks leading up to Kona, it's the questions of when are you going to give it a full focus shot of the year? When are you going to give it that full attention? When are you going to give it as your main focus for the year and that sort of thing? And it's, when are you not going to race 5 full distance races before you get there? And it's always hard because half of me, and after the race actually this year, I was thinking, well, yeah, half of me perhaps wants to do that, but the other half of me isn't prepared to put all my eggs in the one basket. And I do love racing the races I've done, but it's kind of that constant conundrum or balance of, is there a right or wrong, or what's the expectation when people keep asking you those questions?
When you first took that leap to go pro, and you probably had similar thoughts about, I don't know, and I don't know, is there a similar kind of mindset with that actually you did put all your eggs in that one basket to go pro? Like, you've done it before, so to speak. So you could, what's the worst that can happen if you did try that next year?
Damn you, because I've never thought of it that way. Now I haven't got an answer. Yeah, I guess you're right. I was thinking about saying sort of like, well, I need to, the hard thing with putting all your eggs in that one basket is that the only way I earn money is through racing. And relying on race bonuses. I don't have security through, I have some great sponsors, but most of it's product based or smaller dollars. So, a lot of my income is from race winnings. Hence why I race a lot. But then, you balance that with the question of saying, well, if you race less, you'd maybe hit those bigger races more. But again, do you put those eggs in the basket when so much can go wrong? But I guess now going next year, what have you got to lose? What's the worst can happen? And that similar leap from corporate into the professional world, and at that stage you don't know where your money's going to come from, because you're so new into the sport and pretty much at the bottom of the ladder. So I guess it is similar going into Kona, but I don't know. I also struggle because there's so much that you want to do. That I want to do, and I've already eyed up Ironman Wales for next year and that sort of thing. I'd love to do that race. So then when I add up like the other races in the year, I'm like, that puts Kona as the 5th Ironman again, or Iron distance race again. And I probably will race less next year. But I think that's probably going to be racing less of the half distance races and trying to reduce the travel. It's very difficult to choose between Australia, New Zealand, Roth, Wales and Kona as to which to limit. So, yeah.
So you are going to be in Tembe then next year?
Oh my God, am I officially saying that? I would love to be and hope to be. I can't definitely confirm things because I haven't looked at next year's plan too much, but it's definitely on the agenda to be talked about. I've mentioned, actually, to be fair, I've mentioned it to my mum, which means it's set in stone, and they've probably already booked her accommodation. She'll have told everybody, and we'll all be going.
If you do come to Tenby, you will get the best support ever. It is incredible.
As long as
okay, you've done Roth clearly, but no, it is amazing. And Lucy would often say it's better than the World Champs.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. Hopefully, Lucy won't come out of her continual continual racing and possible retirement or possible competing and come back to Tenby next year, because I think the support that she gets there is pretty incredible. And that's what I've heard, and I think to go and experience that race would be fantastic, to go and experience everything that I've heard about that race, as well as it being a race back in the UK, as I've not really raced in fact, funny enough, the last time I raced in the UK was 2013 London Age Group Worlds, and it was an Olympic distance race. I raced, Claire Han came second, and we were both out in Sardinia, and that's and she was racing as a pro, and it was the first time I've actually seen her since that race. And now that we were both racing again, so that was quite funny just the other week. But yeah, I haven't raced in the UK. I am very aware that probably, even though I'm a British athlete and represent Britain when I race, I'm quite distant from the British tri community. And so I would like to come back and race in the UK before my career's over or whatever, and partly just to experience it as a British athlete, and partly obviously because of family and friends that are all back here and that have given me so much support over the years, but have never been able to see me. They probably actually don't want to come and spend 9 hours out on watching race. Maybe I'm just delusional about that, thinking they might want to.
Plus, I guess it's a bit harder, isn't it, to sort of travel halfway around the world to come and watch you, basically.
I know. I mean, I thought it would be nice and appealing to come to those nice locations, but no, maybe it'll have to be Wales and Tenby.
So if you are going to do Wales, does that mean you're still going to chase summer next year? Because you're not guaranteed of chasing summer. How on earth are you going to prepare for potentially really rubbish conditions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I will still probably do my summer to summer, so I head back to New Zealand in about a week's time for summer down there, and I will then come back to Girona in Spain for Northern Hemisphere summer. I like to think that, being from the UK originally, I've still got that British toughness in me, and so still can survive with most conditions that are thrown at me. I mean, New Zealand's not perfect all the time. We've had some pretty average weather in Wanaka. And also actually racing in Austria in Challenge Wolfsea, it's been pretty abysmal. So, but I'll probably come over and spend a bit more time in Wales and just do some course recon and that sort of thing and if I'm based in Spain, it's a lot easier to hop over and do that. So yeah.
It's exciting. It's very exciting. And then how is it sort of working? Obviously, you've done the distance thing between you and Matt Dixon now for a while. Does it work better for you that way?
I wouldn't say it would be my ideal situation. I would much prefer to be with my coach on a more regular basis. I think that's how you improve when you get to a certain place. I think just having a coach with you more regularly during those training sessions, eyes on, that sort of thing, is where you can iron out different improvements, technique or whatever it is, or just they get to see you in more states of physical fatigue or emotional fatigue and that sort of thing. And I do think it's valuable. So it's not ideal, but it just works with the circumstances of where I feel more happy with environments and being based. I mean, I am lucky in Christchurch, New Zealand. I've got Paul Buick down there who works with Matt. So I do get a little bit of chance to see him. I think there's a couple of athletes coming down from our squad who are going to spend some time down in New Zealand as well this year, which has been good. So yeah, it's not a brilliant setup, but I think Matt and I are making the best out of the situation with what works for both of us. He's obviously very, very set and settled in San Francisco and has a squad there, and obviously it works for me being happier in the environments in New Zealand and Spain. So yeah.
You're coming to spend the evening with Nuts for Tri Club shortly, so you were an age grouper as well. What one tip have you got for an age grouper in terms of training?
I've probably got a whole load that you could have warned me about this question, so I could come up with something really insightful.
We can always edit it out.
Yeah, we can. This is true. I think as an age grouper, it's your hobby, and it's really important that it is part of your lifestyle and you balance it with family, work, and everything else. And if that means you only have 3 hours a week to train, that's fine. You optimize those 3 hours. If you have more hours, great, and you optimize those. But I think there's this sort of belief that yes, to do an Olympic distance or to do a half distance or even the full, I should be training X number of hours a week to get there. And okay, there's some level with that. If you are going from 0 to want to do that full distance, you've got to put some hours in. But I think it's key to remember it's still got to be part of your life, and it's got to be balanced in that. And within those hours, you've also got to have that variety in the intensity. So being confident and comfortable with going easy on an easy day and not thinking as an age grouper, I've only got X number of hours a week, so I've got to make them all count. Well, yes, but you make them all count through, some of them are super hard and some of them are easier, so you still get the recovery because you're balancing other stresses in life that actually do affect your training and your performance.
Nailed it on the spot, and you absolutely nailed it.
Well, hopefully. If not, we can edit it.
I like that, Hells. I think you've put some thoughts in Laura's head there. Why not go for Kona next year?
If she wants to.
Yeah.
Give it a go. What's to lose? What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
she might not want to. Whichever. It'll all be good.
Yeah, I could hear it in her voice. She was thinking, actually, you made a good point there.
You never know.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see how
I'd love to see Sid go to Kona focused on it and have a, because she's a big day player. She's a big game player. She's performed really well under, the pressure of big races like Roth and Ironman Australia. So mentally, we know she can handle it, which so many athletes can't. That's not going to crack her. It'd be great to have her go there and not be, she said she was really tired from, was it Madrid she'd raced 3 weeks before?
Yeah.
So, I'd love to see that.
It's exciting. She might come to Wales.
Yeah?
Yeah, you never know. So yeah, we will see. But thanks very much to Laura for her time, for coming to Nuts for Tri Club as well. We learnt loads. And then Rob, one last piece of news about Lionel Sanders and his bike.
Yeah, he's a guy who knows how to promote himself at the moment, doesn't he? I've been really impressed with him. He's now gone over and signed with Canyon and he'll be on the Speed Max next year. But in terms of like an example of how an athlete can help sell a brand, I think he's done a brilliant job. In fact, it seems like he was talking in his video blogs months ago about how he'd had a look at Jan Frodeno's bike and said how he just loved the look of it. And I wonder whether he did a sort of really clever marketing trick on the Canyon marketing department, or whether they were in discussions way back when, because even back then he was talking about how nice Jan Frodeno's bike looked.
Could be either, couldn't it?
Yeah. So yes, you can check that out over on his YouTube channel. And there's a very amusing bit where he's chatting away with the bike in the background and his bike falls over, bless him. They did a great job of editing it to make it look funny. But yeah, it breaks your heart, doesn't it? Brand new bike out the box. Slam on the ground.
God, that's not what you want. No. Even with any bike that falls on the floor, you're just like, oh, balls.
Yeah.
Balls. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, but brand new one, no.
Oh boy, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show, I think, doesn't it?
I think so. What else is happening in Worldy World?
Oh, I just have got to get back to the point where I can sit on a chair, Helen, without being in pain. My sit bones are so sore.
My God, I think you need to go and have a sports massage.
Oh, do my legs feel okay?
The lucky person who gets that one.
Yeah. Oh boy, and on that note, I think I'm going to leave everybody with that fairly unpleasant thought in their head holes.
Exactly. Bye.
All right, everyone, listen, thanks very much for listening. This has been the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. And just a quick shout out for our sponsors before we go. Remember, on Black Friday, you can get 20% off everything on the site on precisionhydration.com with the code OxygenFriday. And Team Oxygen Addict is closed at the minute, but if you want to go and watch our webinar on the time training system, you can click the link in the show notes and you can have a look at that, and there's a link to our waiting list at the end of that webinar. And also we're giving away free 4-week training plans for people on the waiting list as well at the moment, so get yourself some training sessions to get you through the winter. All right, everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers, everyone. See ya.